709 Reasons Why is brought to you by Calman.
Welcome back, everybody, to another brand new episode of 709 Reasons Why. We're going to have a real product specialist and artist in this show today, working with Xencelabs and being from the professional production as well in Hollywood. Welcome, Jayme Wilkinson.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Maybe before we dive into all that stuff that we built up here, maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here.
Well, I have been in the industry. When the industry I'm referring to, the Hollywood industry, been doing feature films, feature animation for 20 plus years. I started out of college. I went to Cleveland Institute of Art for Fine Arts. From there, it was kind of an interesting story. The team from Pixar came in to show some stuff that they were doing, and I was studying fine arts, traditional pencil, paper, all that good stuff, and they showed us some stuff from Luxo Junior, and it's like, wow, this computer thing is very interesting. So I went back to school to the University of Akron to learn about computer science and computer graphics. I used that knowledge as an industrial designer while I was going to school, and from there I went to work for Alias Research out of Atlanta. Well, they're in Toronto, but I was in their Atlanta, Georgia office, traveling the world, supporting customers like Disney, Pixar, ILM, Sony, Digital Domain, all the big studios, and even the big game studios at the time, and the television stations like CNN and TNT, ABC, NBC, to use computer graphics, the Alias Power Animator system, for their computer graphics. And in all of that right there, obviously color has always been an important thing, and we'll definitely get into that, I'm sure.
Awesome. No, this rundown is amazing, and I have to say, I think the most compelling thing when I read your bio was that you are one of the people that are an artist and at the same time with a computer science background. That's a very rare mix, actually, an amazing mix, but also very rare, right? Mm-hmm. That you have both fields, art and science,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So you basically have an idea. Is that passion on both ends?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of it has to do with when I went to school, we didn't have the software systems that we have today. We didn't have systems like these drawing tablets or even laptops. Mm-hmm. We would actually, have big mainframe computers, a Cray XMP or YMP. You're typing in numbers all day long to try to get an image out.
When we look at your Vita, we see you're a stereographer. You understand stereoscopic vision, 3D production. You did visual effects. You did digital art work on so many different things. Maybe give us a little bit of a rundown of the different companies you work with. You already mentioned this a little bit, but maybe some of the projects and maybe some of the limelights, really the big ones.
After Alias Wavefront, when they got bought up by SGI, I got to the point where I was kind of tired of traveling, and I went to Disney feature animation in Florida, where I worked on the tail end of Lilo and Stitch. I worked on Brother Bear, and My Peoples was another project that never got released. After Disney, I went to Electronic Arts, worked on several AAA titles like Madden Football for all the platforms,
Cool.
NASCAR for all the platforms,
Cool.
Superman for all the game platforms. And this is PS3, GameCube, Xbox timeframe, Xbox 360 timeframe. After Electronic Arts, I got an offer to move up to the New York area to work at Blue Sky Studios, where I worked on Horton Hears a Who. I worked on several of their shows until 2018. I mean, all the Ice Age franchise, the Rio franchise, Peanuts movie, and all that. As well as after that, 7 years ago now, I think it's been, I came out to LA, and I have been working with Lightstorm Entertainment and other companies, where I worked on Avatar, The Way of Water, and the next one coming out later this year.
Yeah, it's amazing. Very amazing. I mean, I think most of the movies you actually mentioned is the one my kids love. A lot of those, no wonder. But here's the thing. I think when you think about all those, I mean, you were basically working on every type of media, right? So you had the games, you had TV shows, you mentioned also broadcasters, and then the motion picture production. I think that gets us really nicely into a little bit more of the color talk of 709 Reasons Why. Maybe give us like a 30,000 feet view for the audience. Why is a color managed workflow so important in a media production workflow? What is it? Why they get you in to help them to understand and how to fix it?
Well, actually, in some of these places I've been to, I helped the Electronic Arts in Florida develop a color pipeline. Same thing with Blue Sky Studios. The same thing with Lightstorm, because they were just ramping up for these productions and they didn't have one, and or they were doing some things manually. When you have a few artists, color management is kind of easy, right? You've only got a few displays. But when you're talking about 400 artists, and a third of those artists are doing color critical work like lighting, art and design, color keys, then you need to be able to communicate from story to design to lighting to materials throughout the entire production pipeline, color. What is the mood that the art director envisions for these shots? And if they're not communicated correctly, then it gets hard to look at, it jumps all over the place, and color doesn't help tell your story. And that's what it's all about, telling the story, and to make sure where color fits, it's being used efficiently.
Yeah, very nicely said. So when you talk about color workflows, color managed workflows, of course you have the tools, whatever the different artists are using to create their art or contributing to the project. But most of them then are looking at a display.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So
in the past, they've looked at a display here and a tablet down here, right? And that's not intuitive.
Yes.
Right? And when these type of displays started coming out, they love them because now I can draw what I see just like I'm on paper.
Yes.
But that develops a problem because historically these devices are not color accurate, or they can't reproduce the range of colors that are needed. Because we're talking in film and video, and even in video games, the gamut of colors that you're looking at are specific. Like in video games, you're talking like Rec 709, right? In film and video, you're talking P3, D65, or maybe now you're getting to the point where you're doing HDR, so you're doing wide color gamuts. The technology for color and displaying that color is growing like a weed, and it creates even more problems for the studio to manage that color. And now even with the smaller studios, are a couple people, now it's like 3 times harder to handle. Can you imagine if you got 150 people trying to do color managed workflows? My video engineering team is going to go crazy trying to manage all of that.
Right, and then part of that then is going to be, of course, also the calibration of those displays, right?
Absolutely.
So when maybe before we go into a little bit of what you are doing with Xencelabs and why they got you involved as one of their consultants, maybe let's talk a little bit about the importance of calibration. Why does calibration matter?
Calibration matters because in a feature film or a feature animated film, art directors go through and some of them do what's called a color script, where they plan out mood throughout a story. And color is a big part of that. So they're designing cool colors for certain moods, or transitions from one color space to another color. And I mean like from cools to warms, back to hots or darks, or depending on what the story is. And in order to tell the story, each artist has to be able to say, okay, I'm working on these 5 shots, you're working on the next 5, making sure that they transition properly throughout the flow of the story. And that's where color managed workflow is key. If you don't have that, then you're shooting in the dark, right? And if you have one artist that has a display that's warm, the next artist has a display that's cool, and they're working on the same sequence, in the same color, they're going to look completely different.
Yes.
And then you get art directors who come from dailies, and they call me up and say, Jayme, the colors are off. they're not transitioning correctly. So you got to go and look at one monitor, find out why that person's monitor's cool, and find out why another one's hot. Sometimes it's been out of calibration, or they've modified some settings in there because they perceived that it was too dark.
Yeah.
And so what you have is pretty much a Wild West
Yes.
of an artist saying, okay, now mine is color correct, but it's not communicated to anybody else on the team.
Yeah.
Which
Okay.
is, that's not good.
No, absolutely. And luckily, we have a solution for this. I heard it's called CalMan. That's it's a as you know, a calibration software. Maybe before we start talking about what CalMan has to do with the Xencelabs PD24 Plus, maybe give us a little bit of an idea how the collaboration between Xencelabs and you came into place, and then how the whole thing into CalMan Ready support and color calibration actually got into the Xencelabs story.
The Xencelabs people contacted me because I'd known them for a while because they've come from different areas of the industry, and they've shown their equipment to studios that I have been at. They say, you know what, can you use this in a calibration, in a color accurate mode? And unfortunately, a lot of times in the past, the answer's been no. And here again, Xencelabs came to me asking me the same question recently. And I said, well, if the display technology that you're using hasn't changed, then I'll take a look at it, but probably the answer is still no. But they did change the technology that's in these devices. The Pen Display 24 Plus has got, they've collaborated with the portrait display people, embedded hardware and software system in here to work with the higher display color depth monitor that this has to provide a good solution, a really good solution actually.
Nice. I mean, this reminds me another talk we had with Mike McBride, who's working for Xencelabs, that said that Xencelabs kind of is trying at least to build the product around the needs of the artist.
Yes.
And so that kind of falls neatly into what you're describing. There is the need for color control because a lot of artists are using those tools to contribute within the production, and now they finally can see the same thing.
You're right, exactly. Right. And it's easy to make sure that they're communicating color within the team and on the production between departments.
So you have known CalMan before?
Oh yeah, I have known CalMan before. I have used it before at previous facilities with different displays and things like that. But when Xencelabs came to me and said, we would like you to take a look at this, I said, okay, fine. And so I hooked up my system and said, okay, now this is different. This is something that I haven't seen before because this is working. This is working better than even some standard vertical monitors that are color accurate or color calibratable.
Yes, excellent. So when we would talk about the calibration part, I mean, you were mentioning that there's kind of sometimes Wild West, you know, and that is why they get people like you involved to make sure that there's a sheriff, a color sheriff. Speaking of Wild West terminology, there's a Wild West color sheriff that makes sure that color is kind of maintained then correctly everywhere. I can imagine that when it comes to color calibration, that gets even worse because who knows how to do the calibration? I mean, I guess that's one of the reasons why Xencelabs then teamed up with Portrait with us to say, let's make it as easy as possible, right?
Exactly, and that's a perfect point right there because the software, the CalMan Ultimate, CalMan Studio software, isn't just color calibration software, it provides a workflow for that video engineer to go through and say, I hook up the puck, I use my laptop, start the process, and it just guides me through. And the process of doing the calibration is repeatable, deterministic, and consistent throughout every monitor that needs to be calibrated within a facility. Which is great. Now, one of the things that we have done in a lot of the studios I've been at is because you can't really control the environment that each display is in. So, and some artists like using their tablets like this. Some of them lay them flat. Some of them have them on arms that are in their lap. Some of them have them on animation discs. They're all over the place. And they're in different locations. Some are against a window. Some are enclosed without daylight. So we'll use a dark cloth over top of this to take away the ambient reflection to get that out of the equation, and then you have consistent calibration throughout every monitor or pen display or whatever monitor that you're calibrating.
No, awesome. I mean, of course, that makes us super happy that we get that feedback from you as well, because you work in the field, and for us and our workflow engineers, it's always great to hear that they apparently do a good job to make it more easy.
That is awesome. Yeah,
that's great.
The other cool thing is that for studios, whenever there's a discrepancy, and I've had this happen so many times, like, well, this lighting supervisor says his monitor's out of calibration, and it does, but it matches somebody else's. The CalMan software actually records all this stuff, so you can generate a report, store those reports, recall those reports for each monitor, and you can get it right down to who calibrated it, what day, what device that was used, all of that, so that you can say, okay, where did this particular calibration break down?
Yes.
So that's very I don't know any other system in the world that does that.
By the way, we have a very nice tutorial video where we show how you do it, and so I highly recommend everyone have a look at this video, and it shows you how easy you set up the laptop, connect USB-C, and actually get going.
Yeah.
And you don't even need a pattern generator, because it's all done with just a very simple USB-C connection and a meter. Oh, speaking of meters, I think that's an interesting discussion point as well.
Yeah.
When it comes to meter design and also what you're using to do the calibration, there is a difference between what Portrait is doing with CalMan software and their meter versus using any other meter.
Oh, yeah.
Profiling the panel. Is there anything you can talk about that a little bit, like the process and maybe some best practices?
Yeah, with these specific colorimeters, I have noticed, or this is my experience, is that Portrait Displays has modified the firmware in these to work hand in hand with their software to measure and control the generation that you were talking about and the measurement of the display to be efficient and fast. I've tried other ones that have the same form factor from different manufacturers. I mean, I've got just about every one of these devices that you can think of, and those are slower and less accurate. And they don't report the same kind of data that the CalMan report does. I mean, with the CalMan report, you can literally see the saturation sweeps, does the 11-point luminance test. It'll show you the loci. It'll even show you the loci while it's measuring.
Right.
So it doesn't just take one measurement off the color that's generated, it takes multiple to make sure that there's no deviation. Right. Or get a spurious meter reading, which is great.
So when you think about calibration in terms of different color modes, because you mentioned in the beginning there's 709, there's Rec 709, there's P3D65, there's Adobe RGB, for example. So how is that? How are the artists working? Is that you define a project in the beginning, you calibrate the display to that project, and that is basically how you would do it?
Yeah, it kind of. It depends on the industry, right?
Yes. Okay.
So, like if we're talking feature films, it's literally P3D65. That's pretty much the industry standard. Although, like we talked about earlier, that's migrating into HDR, Rec 2020, wide color gamuts, and the ASIS standards for CG or anything else that these projection technologies can create. That's for feature film. For television, it's Rec 709 because most home televisions can't do what a theater projector can do. And then you talk about video games. Video games is it's television, so it's Rec 709 or sRGB. If it's web series, it's definitely sRGB or Rec 709 in some cases. So it depends on, the project. So if you're doing like package design or graphic design, you're working in like Adobe RGB space. Or you're working in maybe some other space, depending on what your end product is. If you're printing, you're most likely doing Adobe RGB.
Right, right. Okay, awesome. Also, this is something I show in the calibration workflow tutorial, where we show you can actually pick the color gamut, you can pick the white point,
Yes.
you can pick the gamma correction, the power function,
Yep.
because there are even differences. sRGB is 2.2 versus
Yes.
709 would be 2.4. All those little details that are actually possible, and I think that's very interesting to see that this is now possible with a device like that.
Yeah, and the workflows that
Right.
you guys have designed for the color calibration software in CalMan are set up so simply for that. It's like it's like filling out a recipe.
Right.
It's just, the workflows are really nice.
Thank you, Jayme, for coming to us today and telling us a little bit more about Xencelabs.
Well, thank you very much. I had a great time. It was very, very educational for me too.
And even for us, and I think it's not often that we have a chance to have kind of a heavyweight from Hollywood in the show. Thank you very much for everything. Thanks again for watching. If you want to learn more about Xencelabs, check out the link in the description and let us know how you like the show. We see you in the future in one of the other episodes. Bye.